Why does your violin sound scratchy instead of beautiful? Well, there's actually 5 reasons why that might be happening, and all of them are important, but not all of them might be your fault. Let's go over each of these reasons and discover the secrets of beautiful tone in violin playing. Reason number 1 is the most simple, most fundamental, but perhaps one of the most important reasons why your violin tone might be scratchy and, well, just unpleasant in general. And that is because your bow might actually not be straight. In violin playing, it's so important that we play with a straight bow. What is a straight bow? Well, a straight bow is a bow that is exactly perpendicular to the string. This is actually a surprisingly difficult thing to master on the instrument. And that's because it's actually pretty difficult for you, from your point of view, to discover whether or not your bow is straight. That's because what might seem straight from your eyes doesn't actually appear to be straight at all. So when practicing for this, there are 2 things that I would recommend. The first is to look in the mirror while you practice, and when you do so, organize your position so that your violin, or the face of your violin, and the strings of your violin are parallel to the surface of the mirror. And then try to make sure that your bow is perpendicular to those strings relative to the mirror. It should be relatively easy to adjust for this while looking in a mirror. The problem with this practice is that you might become somewhat dependent on these visual cues. That brings us to the second most useful way of practicing for a straight bow, which is to simply record yourself. Film yourself, but don't watch the film as you play. Set up a camera, and once again, face so that your violin is parallel to the surface of the camera or to the lenses of the camera, and then try to make sure that your bow, after the fact, was in fact straight. Take short videos, 10 seconds here, 15 seconds there, and quickly watch them back and make adjustments with the information from the video camera so you get used to the idea of feeling what you believe to be straight and getting instant feedback of whether or not that was actually straight. One final way to practice to make sure you have a straight bow is to do bow taps. You can do this in a mirror, you can do this for a video camera, or you can do this by yourself with neither. And this is simply to tap the bow at the frog, tap the bow at the center, and tap the bow at the tip. All the while, you try to maintain your sounding point at each tap, and you try to maintain the angle of the bow. Reason number 2 why you might be playing with a scratchy sound is that your 3 ingredients are out of balance. If you're new to the channel, you might not know what the 3 ingredients of bow sound are, but I'll go over them quickly, and I've gone over them more in depth in other videos, including my lesson on how to use the bow for beginners. Quickly put, there are 3 ingredients to bow sound. We have the speed of the bow, how fast you're moving it. We have the sounding point, how far away from the bridge you are, or how close you are to the bridge. And the pressure of the bow, how heavy you're actually placing the bow on the string. These 3 ingredients are helplessly connected in violin playing. If you ever adjust one of these ingredients, it's important that you adjust the other 2 to accommodate it. One of the primary reasons you might be playing with a scratchy tone is because your ingredients are out of balance. For example, you might be playing with too much pressure for how fast your bow is moving. If you play with a lot of pressure and your bow is not moving fast, you get this noticeable, I call it croaking sound. Yeah, that's a horrible sound, we don't like it. If you do the opposite, where you play with the bow too fast for the amount of pressure, you get this really wispy sound. If you play too close to the bridge with not enough pressure, you almost lose the pitch entirely. If you play away from the bridge with too much pressure, you again get that croak, or that more common scratch sound. And this is actually the most common thing I see with beginners or intermediate violinists, is that their sounding point in general is too far away from the bridge. And this causes the string to collapse under the weight of the bow, which creates this croaking, scratchy sound. Reason number 3 why you might have a scratchy tone is actually something that is not a technique issue, but is actually an equipment issue. It could be that you have too much rosin buildup on your strings. It's very important that you don't allow the strings to build up and cake too much rosin, as that can cause your bow to be interfered with when drawing across the strings. This can create an unpleasant and scratchy sound, as well as dampen the resonance of your instrument as a whole. So it's important to use a cloth and regularly clean your strings. In fact, I would highly recommend that every time before you're done playing, you quickly go once over with the cloth on each of your strings, as well as the area of the wood beneath your strings and the area of the fingerboard that is likely to get covered in some rosin. The fourth reason that you might have a scratchy sound is another equipment issue. It has to do with the bow. You could either need a new rehair, or you could need a new rosin. When we play the violin, we use a bow that has horsehair. And the horsehair has barbs on it, if you look at it under a microscope, and these barbs actually catch the string, and they also help hold the rosin in. All these things together allow the bow to catch the string and cause it to grip and vibrate. However, over time, these barbs fall off, these hairs get smooth, and you even lose bow hair as well. All of these things cause your hair to lose its grip and its potency, which causes your tone to therefore get scratchy and diluted. Another thing that you need is good rosin. I always highly recommend that students pay a little bit extra and get a decent rosin, because the difference between the cheap rosin that comes in the case when you buy a factory-made instrument and a rosin that's like $10 is enormous. You don't need the fanciest rosin, but you definitely need one that's handmade and responds well to your violin. Things to consider when purchasing rosin is your violin and where you live. Depending on your climate, you might want to use a darker rosin or a lighter rosin. I personally live in a pretty humid climate, and I actually really like this light rosin that I use from this company called Milos. And I can leave one of my Amazon links down below if you're curious about that rosin. Finally, let's go over the fifth and final reason why you might be playing with a scratchy sound. And you might not believe it, because all of the sound that comes out of our instrument, we think about the right hand and the bow. But actually, one reason you might have a scratchy sound is because of your left hand. One thing that can cause a scratchy tone is that either your left hand is not pressing at the correct time, or it's not pressing sufficiently. When we use our left hand to stop the string, it's important that the string is stopped fully. So when we place our first finger, for example, we want that first finger to actually press the string so that the string touches the fingerboard. If the string is in the process of being pressed while we draw the bow, we get a scratchy sound. Sometimes the issue is so significant that even after we press the string down fully, it's too late and the string has started this bad reverberation. Another reason not to do with coordination as to why you might have a scratchy sound in the left hand is actually because your left hand might just not be pressing the string down all the way. When we place our fingers, remember that it's important that they press the string all the way into the fingerboard. The only time we don't do this is when we're trying to play a harmonic. All other times, which is most all of the time we're playing on the violin, it's important that our finger fully stops the string. If we don't, we get this really nasty sound again, but this time it sustains. It doesn't matter how perfectly you're bowing. You could have a straight bow, you could have all the ingredients right. If your left hand's not cooperating, you could be playing with a scratchy tone. With that, let me know in the comments below if there's something I missed that could cause a scratchy tone, or let me know in the comments which of these 5 reasons you think is causing your scratchy tone. If you like this video, don't forget to like it, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss a future video. Thanks so much for watching, and happy practicing.